Hi, everyone. Welcome to First and North. My name is Luke Canellis at Fox 32 in Chicago. Let's bring up the crew. First, from Fox 2 in Detroit, the voice of the Lions, Dan Miller. Good to see you, Dan. From Fox 6 in Milwaukee, Lily Zhao. And from Fox 9 in Minneapolis, he is back, Ahmad Hicks. Merry Christmas to everyone. All right, let me throw up the NFC North standings to get things going as we get ready for the final weekend of the regular season. Bears won the NFC North last Saturday by virtue of the Packers' home loss to the Ravens. It's the Bears' first division title since 2018. They've won the division only 6 times the last 25 years, and 4 of those 6 division championships came after the Bears finished last the season before. We're going to talk more about going from worst to first later on in the show. Packers, they're second. They've locked up the 7th seed in the NFC playoff picture, but they've dropped 3 games in a row. Vikings on a bit of a roll, 4 straight wins. Lions have lost 3 games in a row. Here's the NFC playoff picture. Number 1 seed will be decided Saturday night when Seattle and San Francisco play. If the Seahawks win or tie, they capture the top seed. If San Francisco wins, then they're the number 1 seed with the first round bye and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. If the Bears beat Detroit and or the Eagles lose to Washington, the Bears are the 2 seed and they host the Packers at Soldier Field. And if the Bears lose and Philadelphia wins, the Bears are the 3 seed. Philadelphia would then host Green Bay. The Bears would play either the Niners or Rams in the wild card round at Soldier Field. And I want to start here in Chicago with the Bears. Despite losing that game on Sunday Night Football, the Bears showed that they could hang with one of football's best offenses on the road. They fell short to the Niners, 42-38, but inside a crazy, raucous Levi's Stadium. And despite their defense, man, they traded scores with San Francisco all night long. First time, by the way, in NFL history, the game was tied at 7, 14, 21, 28, and 35. Now, the Bears got to the San Francisco 2-yard line, had one final play, but a 7th 2-minute comeback did not happen on Sunday night. Positives were obviously the play of Caleb Williams in that offense. I thought it was Williams' best game as a pro, throwing from the pocket. First time this season, he threw for over 300 yards in a game. And the rookies stepped up as well at the playmaker position, specifically receiver Luther Burden and tight end Colston Loveland. They were the 2 top pass catchers for the Bears in that game. The negative, Bears defense got shredded for almost 500 yards by that Niners offense, which came into the game playing well. Couldn't stop San Francisco on Sunday night. Put very little pressure on Brock Purdy. The D has given up almost 400 rushing yards the last 2 games. It is something this Bears team needs to be concerned with as they get set for the playoffs. Speaking of not being able to stop the run, let me bring in Lily from Green Bay, from Milwaukee actually, but we're going to talk about those Packers. Packers were real honest post-game after the Ravens lost. Take a listen.
We basically just got our call it like it is. I mean, we knew what they were doing. They ran the ball. We couldn't stop the run. Point blank period. And we got to fix that tomorrow if we want to go past the wild card game in the playoffs. If we don't, we're going to be sitting right back in Green Bay.
Well, that was a humbling night. Give Baltimore a ton of credit. They came in here and were in complete control the whole game. And unfortunately, it wasn't up to our standard.
Did you guys come out flat?
Well, I think anytime. I think that's the natural thing to say, the easy thing to say. I don't think I saw a team that was flat. I saw a team that we just got beat. We got whipped. And so, but I would not say that.
Yeah, whipped bad. Lily, I think King Henry is still running around Green Bay right now. I mean, and at some point, here, let me be fair. At some point, all those injuries on the Green Bay defensive line, they really start to become an issue, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We saw it with the Lions last year, but that was a Detroit team that was able to overcome adversity. The Packers this season, without Micah Parsons, you lose that presence up front. You lose Devontae Wyatt, who was a big body on the defensive line, who's really good at stopping the run. You don't have that. And then on top of that, you're just dealing with injuries everywhere else on the defense. And so this was just a Packers unit that knew the Ravens were going to run the ball behind Derrick Henry, and they just flat out could not stop them. Talk about really good players on this defense. Akoi Walker didn't have his best game, so when you can't tackle in the middle level, that's what happens. I mean, he ran wild, 216 yards by Derrick Henry on the ground, the most given up by to an opposing opponent in Lambeau Field history. 307 total rushing yards given up by this Packers defense. That simply cannot happen, especially in Week 17. You could talk about the injuries, the lack of focus, the fact that they had clinched a playoff spot already. I think all of that comes into play, but a performance like that is pretty concerning in Week 17. And then you have the Ravens following the Bears lead with the cheese graters. I mean, the Packers are kind of being made a mockery of, and that's something that can't happen moving forward. But this performance on Saturday night was abysmal, guys.
Yeah, those cheese grater hats are becoming very popular. Dan, what happened to the Lions Christmas Day?
Turnovers, man. You can't turn the ball over 6 times and expect to win a game. And it was interesting because they went into that game number 1 in the NFL in not turning the ball over. But in that game, it became an issue. But it really looked like the first Minnesota game. They just didn't handle that front. And it's been one of the issues they've had to deal with this year is that offensive line not being a cohesive unit, not being on the same page, not communicating effectively. And in particular, when you play that Brian Flores defense, it becomes really difficult. And the glaring difference that you see with this line and the guys that were here last year, like a Kevin Zeitler and more importantly a Frank Ragnow, they played that Brian Flores defense 4 times, won all 4 times, scored over 30 points each time, at least 30 points. This year, they did not handle it well without those guys. You thought maybe the second time around it would be better. It wasn't. Losing to that offense that Minnesota trotted out there was a tough one. But in this league, you're not going to win if you turn it over 6 times. And they just did not handle the heat.
Yeah, Dan's right, Ahmad. The 6 turnovers, obviously, you're going to lose that football game. But I want you to look at the entire 4-game win streak. What's been the biggest reason behind this turnaround in Minnesota right now?
Defense, defense, defense. And can we just take a second to sit here and talk about how the Vikings are 3rd in the division right now with possibly one of their worst offenses they've trotted out in the last 4 or 5 years under head coach Kevin O'Connell. I don't think anyone predicted that. I think we all predicted the Detroit Lions to be first in the NFC North. So quite a turnaround here, especially for a team that was 4-8 just 4 weeks ago. I think you have to credit the defense and the defense only in this one. I think when people think about the Vikings early or their midseason struggles, people don't provide a lot of context and mention the fact that Blake Cashman and Andrew Van Ginkel missed a significant amount of time after that first game against the Bears in the regular season opener. Since those 2 guys have returned, the whole defense has been clicking and playing as one, and that's what you've been seeing through weeks 14 and 16 right now, just giving up 12 points a game, 10 takeaways. I mean, they went the whole season with 11. Now they're starting to ramp things up. So I think it all centers around Blake Cashman, Andrew Van Ginkel, and the offense starting to do something other than this game on Christmas. That was pretty abysmal offensively, but I think J.J. McCarthy was able to sustain drives, give the defense a break, and then they can go out there and pressure the quarterback.
What I love about Ahmad Hicks, and I'm so happy you're back, is you always provide a ton of context. So I've got one for you, and I want Dan to jump in as well. If the NFL adopted a playoff format like the NBA, the Vikings would be playing the Packers this weekend for a playoff invite. San Francisco, the Rams, Bears, Eagles, and Pack would all be in, but the Panthers, Cowboys, Buccaneers, Lions, and Vikings would all be playing this weekend to get into the playoffs. And again, Ahmad and Dan, since both the Vikings and Lions are part of this discussion, and I'll start with you, Ahmad, I want your opinion. Should the Vikings feel cheated at this point, like they belong in the playoffs more than the Buccaneers or the Panthers from the NFC South?
No, I think division winners should get in based on, forget the records and whatnot. You win your division, you get in. That's kind of how it's always been. That's how it should be. And no, I don't think that they should feel cheated. What they should feel is a missed opportunity. They had a young offensive line. Well, I won't say a young offensive line, a young offensive unit, and they weren't able to capitalize and steal a couple of wins. We all knew during the middle of the season when they had that stretch against the Baltimore Ravens, the Steelers, and the Eagles and a couple of other teams, they had to win 2 out of those 4 games. They won 1 of those games. Had they won 1 or 2 more games, they possibly would be in the playoffs. So, no, you can't cry over spoiled milk. You missed your opportunity. You didn't capitalize on it. So let the best play. I do think that the best record should get in outside of division winners because no one wants to see a 7-8 team or 7-9 team get in the playoffs. So the best should get in outside of division winners.
All right, Dan, let me bring you in because I know that the Lions proposed last offseason that 4 division champs, all right, we're going to go with what Ahmad just said, that division champs deserve to go. They proposed the 4 division champs and 3 wild cards from each conference make the playoffs and be seeded by record. Do you agree with what the Lions proposed?
But that's different than saying you get in based on record.
Yes.
That's seeding based on
Yes.
record, which I wouldn't have a problem with if you wanted to do that. But I agree with Ahmad. I do think that your division winners should, I think, get preferential treatment in the first round in particular. Top seeds should get a bye. Next 3 should get home games. Look, these things are cyclical. If you want to seed them by record after that, that's fine. I don't necessarily know that I would seed them by record to start with. It's cyclical. We've seen years where the AFC or the NFC East is a beast. We've seen years where the NFC West had a losing team in Seattle win the division, won a playoff game. This year, you got 3 teams that are absolutely rolling in the West. So I do think you have to award teams for winning a division. After that, I like the system that they have right now. If you want to talk about reseeding them after the first round, that's a different discussion.
All right, Lily, let me bring you back because the Packers have not won a division title and have been the 7th seed for what now, the last 3 years since Aaron Rodgers left. Do people talk about that in Green Bay? Is that an indictment against Jordan Love?
I don't think it's an indictment against Jordan Love, but, you know, it is what it is. They just haven't played to their level of getting a seed higher than 7. It just seems like that's kind of been their ceiling thus far. But, you know, had the Packers won a game against the Ravens and, you know, the Bears dropped 2, we're talking about them being a potential 2 seed. So, you know, it is what it is. It's been tough, and it's been tough sledding. And I will say, even in the, you know, LaFleur era, you see there in the early 2020s when Aaron Rodgers was still in town, they had home field advantage, were a top 1-2 seed and still couldn't get it done and go all the way to the Super Bowl. So it's not ideal. You know, Packers fans, and they want their team to win the NFC North every year. They want this team to be a top contender in the playoffs, but it just hasn't come to fruition the last couple of years. But it's not to say it can't happen next year. Again, this is a Green Bay team. Make no excuses. Every team's dealing with injuries, but they've lost a lot of really good star players this season, and it's just hard to do.
Yeah, they lost their best player, Micah Parsons, had successful surgery on his torn ACL Monday. He was all over social media. There he is right now with his picture. Not only did Packers fans, but everyone who follows the NFL, everyone wants to know, when is he going to be back? What are you hearing?
If you're asking Micah Parsons, it's September, which, again, guys, is going to be a crazy quick comeback from an ACL surgery, and just getting that body back and getting your leverage back and getting the strength back. It's going to be, you know, a tough hill to climb, but Micah Parsons, I think, is a guy that's up for it. You know, he did post a couple days ago as well that, you know, it's been just a mentally and physically tough journey dealing with that. And I think part of it is not being able to be on the field and play for his team. But in terms of the road to recovery, Christian Watson also, you know, kind of quote tweeted that and said, you know, we're kind of waiting for you. Christian Watson got back on the field in 10 months, so we'll see if Micah Parsons can do it in about 9. I think it'll be, you know, maybe the start of the regular season or first couple weeks, and that's hopefully when he will target to be back on the field. Give me 30 seconds. Green Bay's defense, it's really struggled without Parsons coming off the edge. Rashawn Gary's been a huge disappointment. This guy was given a $96 million contract a couple of years ago, an extension. He has not delivered. He's gone 9 games without a sack, quarterback hit, tackle for loss. Matt LaFleur losing confidence in Gary at all? You know, he was asked that question this week, and he, again, always kind of doesn't throw anybody under the bus, but says everybody around him has to play better. The collective has to be better. But I don't think Matt LaFleur would say no. I mean, they do need more from Rashawn Gary. Like you mentioned, he's getting a big contract, but he hasn't gotten a sack since week 8, 7.5. That's what he's been stuck at this season. You need more from Rashawn Gary without Micah Parsons, and he hasn't delivered thus far. But it's not to say you can't in the playoffs. We shall see.
All right, nice work. We need to take a break. When we come back here on First and North, we're going to dig a little bit about Brian Flores and Flores potentially leaving Minnesota. Keep it right here on First and North.
It's Bears.
What a day for football.
It's game day.
No better way to start off the season than right here at the Walter Duck.
It's live.
To be out here with the Bears fans. They're ready.
Bears game day live Sunday at 9:30 on Fox Chicago.
I'm Luke Canellis at our Fox 32 studios in Chicago. First and North. Dan Miller is from Fox 2 in Detroit. Lily Zhao, Fox 6 in Milwaukee. And Ahmad Hicks, Fox 9 in Minneapolis. All right, Lily, you closed the first half. Now you're getting the kickoff here in the second half. I'm going with you to start things. Jordan Love working through concussion protocol. Do you think he plays against the Vikings?
I don't think so. I mean, if there was something to play for in Week 18, potentially, but I think right now the Packers cannot tempt the injury gods any longer. They can't. They just physically can't do it. So I don't think you see Jordan Love out there. Malik Willis, depending on his status, I think potentially might get a half, and then you might see Clayton Tune right out this game. But I don't think you see Jordan Love until Week 1 of the playoffs.
All right, I'm going to stir the pot here. I'm going to stir the pot come the playoffs. If Willis keeps playing well, is there a quarterback controversy?
Absolutely not. There is no quarterback controversy in Green Bay. I know that's been the narrative around the nation potentially. Is Malik Willis going to, is he better than Jordan Love? Credit Malik Willis and credit Matt LaFleur for what they've been able to do together. The growth that we have seen in Malik Willis, even last year when he got 2 spot starts, he's been absolutely phenomenal. Matt LaFleur has called a great game for him. His development has been fantastic, but there is no quarterback controversy. Jordan Love is the guy. He's their franchise player. Matt LaFleur had to reiterate, Jordan Love's the guy. Don't ask why. It is what it is. Malik Willis will earn a big paycheck in the offseason as a free agent. He will get a chance to start somewhere next year. The Packers will sorely miss him, but Jordan Love is QB1 and will be QB1 for the near future.
All right, I have to relay this for our audience. I know in Green Bay they follow everything regarding the Packers, but for the audience watching in Detroit, Chicago, and Minneapolis, Willis's numbers since coming to Green Bay, they're ridiculous. The guy has completed almost 80% of his passes, 972 yards, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. His quarterback rating is 135. The guy is rushed for 261 and 3 TDs as well. And as Lily just said, he's going to make a lot of money somewhere in March when he becomes a free agent. What about Minnesota, Ahmad? Seriously, would the Vikings front office be interested in bringing in Willis to compete with J.J. McCarthy?
I saw that question in our rundown. I was like, of course this is in there. Look, I think that's the last thing the Vikings want as a quarterback for J.J. McCarthy is for someone for him to have to look over his shoulder. I think when you're talking about in terms of growth, development, and just having trust in yourself, you want a veteran quarterback that can go out there and be a guy but not be the guy, kind of like Malik Willis has been for the Green Bay Packers in Jordan Love's absence. So I think that would kind of just be like a double-edged sword for the Vikings. Yes, you got a good backup quarterback, but then as soon as J.J. McCarthy does bad, everybody wants Willis. I think the best thing for J.J. McCarthy and his growth is to get a solidified backup quarterback in the National Football League, but someone like a Tyrod Taylor, a Marcus Mariota that won't threaten to take his starting position, because I think that's where they put all their chips in the basket is with J.J. McCarthy.
All right. I'm not sure I agree with you, but we don't have time to sit and argue about Malik Willis. I do want to ask you about defensive coordinator Brian Flores. Final year of his contract with the Vikings. Final game coming up potentially. All right. There's already a report that the Cowboys are ready to pay Flores a king's ransom to replace Matt Eberflus. What are you hearing about Brian Flores?
from what head coach Kevin O'Connell said the other day, he didn't anticipate Brian Flores to leave the Vikings to go take another defensive coordinator job. Brian Flores was pressed about this today, asked, what's he going to do? Is he going to be a head coach or a defensive coordinator elsewhere? And he said, look, that's between the team and my agent. I'll let them handle that. Here's my thing, though, when it comes to him being a head coach. He has been monumental in Minnesota when it comes to turning around this defense that was once led by Ed Donatel. But I find it very hard to believe he's going to be a leader of a football team as a head coach while he's actively in the process of suing the National Football League for racial discrimination. I just know that these owners collude with one another, and I can't see one of them going against one of the other 31 owners to give him a head coaching job. So as much as he deserves it, I don't think he will get it because of his ongoing litigation.
You're right. Great point. That's all I'll say. Dan, I'm going to go back in the time machine. January 26th, 28th, 2024, following that Lions NFC Championship loss to the Niners. Listen in.
Sometimes you can only say so much. You got to live it, unfortunately. And you got to get your heart ripped out, which we did. And it's a lesson learned. And look, I told those guys, this may have been our only shot. Do I think that? No. Do I believe that? No. However, I know how hard it is to get here. I'm well aware. And it's going to be twice as hard to get back to this point next year than it was this year.
With the way Detroit has struggled, I really thought about, and I watched that. I was literally on a Disney cruise with my wife and daughter watching him after the game. And let me just say this about Campbell, because the guy's played in the NFL. He played in the NFL as obviously a player 11 years, started as a coaching intern, 15, 16 years ago in Miami. In other words, he has seen and lived through NFL football since he was part of the New York Giants back in 1999, 26 years ago. So he knows how tough it is, Dan, to reach the playoffs, the NFC Championship. He was part of a Super Bowl winner. Do you think his players took him seriously when he made that comment back then?
No, I think they understood what they had done and how short they had come up in that second half against San Francisco. And I think it burned. And I think what you saw right there was the raw emotion of having a Super Bowl trip in your hands and letting it get away. And I think Dan Campbell has often said after a loss, he wants his players to feel it. He wants it to burn, and it should hurt. And I think what he was trying to say that day is, fellas, remember this feeling, because if you get this close again, you don't want to have it happen again. You want to make sure you take advantage of it. I don't think that he believes that's going to be their only opportunity to get back to that game. You don't know, but I certainly think he believes even this team sitting at 8-8, getting ready to close out a season and not go to the playoffs, can retool this offseason and be a factor again next year. But that is in keeping with Dan Campbell's personality. After a game like that, he wants his players to feel it, and that really stung that day.
I love his transparency. Stand by. I'm going to start with you after a break, Dan, because I want to talk about how Campbell is going to handle this final game against Ben Johnson and the Bears as we keep it right here on First and North.
Final word for Chicago sports fans.
This is what we wanted to see from the Bears.
Chicago Sports Tonight, covering the big plays.
Touchdown Bears!
And the next moves. Join Luke, Cassie, and Tina. Chicago Sports Tonight, weeknights at 9:30 on Fox 32 Chicago.
Final week of the regular season, Sunday at noon. Packers looking to build some momentum going into the playoffs against the Vikings, who are going for their 5th win in a row. America's Game of the Week, Ben Johnson and the Bears host the Lions in a rematch from the Week 2 beating the Bears suffered at Ford Field. Dan, I'm going back to you. How is Dan Campbell going to handle this game on Sunday?
Yeah, everything we've heard is they're going to send their guys out there and they're going to play this game to win it. Now, that being said, I think there might be weeks during the regular season where you might push a guy out there to play if there's something on the line, whereas in this case, that might not be the case. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a flurry of moves at the end of the week where anybody that's even remotely questionable gets put on IR or dropped or something like that, and you bring some practice squad guys up. But I think the regulars that are ready to go want to be out there. They've expressed that, and I think they're going to do the best they can to put the best team possible out there. I don't think there's going to be any pull in the chute in Detroit.
Ben Johnson says we're playing to win. The 2 seed is at stake for the Bears. Ahmad, What does this winning streak the Vikings are rolling on right now mean for this team going into next season?
Just something to build on, that there's hope that they can do this, that they can turn things around, and that they are a good football team. They all told me that pretty much the start of the season was not who they envisioned they would be. Now this is the team they kind of hoped they would be. So a chance to have some momentum heading into the offseason and kind of figure out what they're going to do offensively.
Lily, Packers need to build some momentum going into the postseason.
They absolutely do, especially on defense. We'll see if that can happen against Max Brosber and company. But I think the number one goal for these Green Bay Packers, stay healthy. They've been injury bitten all year long. Stay healthy in Week 18 as they go into the playoffs.
All right, everyone, great show as always. What a year it's been. I thank you all for a great 2025, and I look forward to seeing you in 2026. Everyone have a happy new year. For Dan, Lily, and Ahmad, I'm Luke Canellis. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next year on First and North.